Thank you so much for joining us this month for BIMxt Network. My name is Dana DeFilippi, coming to you from my home office in Virginia. For those of you guys who do not know me, I am a computational leader at Smith Group. I also have, participate in multiple BIM groups like this one, as well as my own YouTube channel, Dynamo BIM. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my very, very most favorite topics, Dynamo. And we have one of the real celebrities when it comes to Dynamo. If you know about Dynamo, you probably know about John Pierson. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, then probably Rhythm, Monocle, Bang, maybe not Bang so much anymore, but Design Tech Unraveled is his blog. His YouTube channel is always putting out great content. And as Dan mentioned, he has some really great Twitter feed. So make sure that you check that out. He's going to be talking to us today about what's new in Dynamo. So Revit 2023 released Dynamo 2.13. It's a mouthful, but he's going to talk about that. Really exciting stuff. Then we're going to actually, before then, have Dan talk about a tip. You can see on our mural, which hopefully has been shared in the chat already. If not, I'm sure Amanda or one of the group is sharing it in the chat there for us. Make sure you join the mural, which I am presenting here today. You can see a lot of this is for you guys. The very left side of the mural is really about the group. You can see all of the advisors that partake in the group are listed here. You can get to all of our information by double clicking on the LinkedIn, Twitter, or for myself, YouTube. We are run by a bunch of Revit user groups, essentially along the East Coast here. So really trying to bring the best to you. And that's really what we do. We try to ensure that you, the participants, are not only engaged in learning, but also bringing us information. You guys have a wealth of information. So later in today's meeting, we're actually going to get feedback from you. It's been 2 years since BIMxt has been going on. We want to make sure that it's in the direction that you guys want, so we can talk about what you guys want from the future of BIMxt. Make sure at the very least, you add up here your name and location. You can do that by either copying, by right-clicking and duplicating one of the boxes. You can see that they're aligned to disciplines. You can see over here on the left, each icon corresponds to a discipline, right? I'm BIMIT aligned, so I would probably grab the one with the laptop and duplicate that guy, move him around. Make sure you at least give us your name and location of where you're calling from. Unfortunately, I didn't replace last month's winner. Chris Harrison won a $25 gift card last month. We will make sure by the end of the meeting, we give a presentation or a gift card for last month's presentation and someone who shared their name and location. Maybe even a false location. Just share what your name is, right? We like to see that you guys are participating. And once again, later today, we will get more information from you and have you engaged in the mural further, as you can see over on the mural. But I'm actually going to take you right over to the right here. Dan Warren, BIM Operation Manager with McMillan, Pazdan, Smith Architecture. He's going to be talking about some really cool stuff with BIM 360 projects and add-ins. I'm going to let him take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. I assume y'all can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if I'm broadcasting. Fantastic. Okay. So you can see from my graphic, I work with architects. I am not an architect. So big distinction there. So what I wanted to talk about today is to give a little bit more insight into this new product coming out, or that's out, called it's Bridge by Autodesk. I really am excited about this product because it sort of upends the entire concept that BIM 360 was based on. In fact, I went back through all of our BIM execution plans, and everything is like based on the assumption that BIM 360 projects do not transfer data from one project to another. And even with the desktop connector, there's some challenges to that, right? So, and this is the environment we currently exist in. If you're working at BIM 360, you can have the design team on one project and the build team on another project. and you can't push data directly across, right? So you end up doing some sort of workaround like pushing to Bob's computer, and then Bob uploads it to the build team so that it becomes available for them. Manual handling of files, in my opinion, is a massive waste of energy, but nowadays that's changed. So in the new environment, the ACC, the Autodesk Construction Cloud, with the build enablement, allows you to create direct links between projects. And that's actually what I'm going to go through today. So I'm going to show you how it actually works. And it's actually like during one of the testings, like as I've been testing it, I was like, wow, this actually is super simple. And I'm really excited how it's going to change the way we work on the cloud. But two things to note.
I'm sorry, Dan. I feel like that's really kind of the migration we're seeing, right? With Dynamo, even we could say the same thing. It's like 10, 15 years ago, maybe somebody could argue that those years are different, but we saw the migration to BIM, right? From the 2D world to the 3D world. I think now we're really seeing this push on data, right? And how we can access that data. And I'm loving it.
Correct. Yeah. So I consistently talk with my teams about data flow and like where your data lives and how it's getting from point A to point B. So there's two important things to note when you're sharing information is that the Bridge has basically sort of two repositories you could pull and push from. One is the Sheets section of Build, and the other is the Files section of Build. And without getting too in-depth in the difference between these two locations, basically the Sheets is very similar to the, what was the root folder in BIM 360? Plans. It's very similar to that. It allows you to create title blocks and automatically hyperlink drawings and do all that fun stuff.
Which, yeah, I hated that name.
Yeah.
Like it's such a specific name. Like it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And the whole process, like there's a couple things you have to get right to get this to work. So whether you're pushing or pulling data between projects, because it supports both inbound and outbound data flows, you have to have permissions on both projects. So I've got my dummy account here on the left, and I've got my Dan Warren account on the right, and I'm in two different projects. Yeah, I'm in project 1 and then project 2. Two different projects, two different environments. And I'm setting this up so I can show you how it works. So step 1 is I need to create that link. And that's actually really easy. Once you create your ACC project with the enablements, you go to Bridge. And then this is where I say, hey, I want to bridge to another project, right? So you create bridges to individual projects by connecting with specific users. So this is my robot account, and it would be emailing Dan Warren. It would be emailing Dan Warren to say, hey, I want a bridge. And it's pretty much instantaneous. So then on my side, the receiving side, I actually get an email, which then allows me to say, okay, I'm going to connect this BIM testing project 1 to another specific ACC project. Right. And that's how Autodesk on the cloud side knows, okay, this project can talk to this project. But in order to push the data, my robot and me need to have admin rights on both projects. And there's control over it. So don't think like you're giving somebody like unfettered access to your project data. The way it works is if you want to control where somebody sends information, you can do it through the basic, like the permission settings. So in this example, if my robot wanted to prevent me from just pushing anywhere, what they would do is they would come over here to the left. I think Zoom's in the way, but they would change my permissions from administrator to member. And then I can only provide access to one location. So it actually provides extremely flexible data flows. But yeah, so then we get into the actual sharing of sheets. Remember, I said there's two locations that you can work in. You can work in sheets or you can work in files. What I like about the sheets is the sheets can be automated. So you can think about this like the best way to address this is like if I am controlling the sheets and then I'm distributing those out in a systematic process, like a GC distributing to a team or a design team distributing to a build team. Anytime I add a sheet here from my computer, I just basically throw it in there and it gets processed. And when I decide to share that sheet, it will automatically push to another project, right? So if I upload a 1.10, this is on version 3, it will update over here automatically in my connected account.
It's like a live link with the model, but now with the documentation.
Correct.
So
Yep.
They're bridging the gap.
Mm-hmm. Those marketing folks at Autodesk really got it together, right? So the thing is you have to push individual sheets. So for example, like this A 10.12 is not over here. So I did this on purpose so I could show you. If you want to share this, you just check the box and then you come up here and you say, I want to share to another project. And then I pick my project. And if I toggle this on, it will automatically push to the receiving project every time that sheet is updated. And now that is live set up in this project. I was testing it this morning at like 5 a.m. and it was like almost instantaneous. But as like the world woke up and got to work, like it's definitely slowed down a lot. So it's definitely a cloud bandwidth issue. But yeah, so eventually over here on the right, this sheet will just appear in my sheet list. Files, on the other hand, are slightly different. Files do not support automatic updates. No, I don't want to attend your webinar. So for example, I have in here some faux architectural, like Revit models. If I want to, I can push these to another project. And I'm going to pick that. I'm going to dump it into my Bridge folder right here. If I toggle on automatic updates, it gives me a warning because you can't do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and push it, and I'll show you what happens on the receiving side in my files. And I thought this was really interesting. They don't overwrite. They actually stack. Yeah, so like, let me make that bigger. So it doesn't overwrite it. It doesn't stack. It creates a new copy, right? So unfortunately, it's not like I can just keep overwriting the same file so I get that version tracking, but it still provides the latest update and it keeps them independent. Last thing I wanted to point out, like once it's set up, it literally just works. You can't automate files, but you can automate sheets. And this I thought was really interesting in Revit. So I'm in Revit, and this is just a dummy file I have up there. If I go to that bridged location, I can't see the architectural model that just got pushed over at all. But what I can do is I can go back, and if I use my Link Revit will actually let me see the file. So I don't know exactly where this is going, but I'm super excited that like Revit can actually see these files.
Well, and give me a real world example as to when you might use this.
So
what's
the
some
idea,
data you might want to be able to grab from here?
Yeah. So I can think of two really good examples. First one being like just the transitioning of data from point A to point B. You know, the handoff from design team to build team, from facilities management team to design team, anything like that. Additionally, like assuming the Revit linking part works in the future, that would be a great way to manage a design build project delivery, because then all the subs and the design assist partners can just live link copies of the design models, and the design team can control when those models are updated. So it allows everybody to work in their individual hubs. What I also really like about this, and I'm excited about it, some of my other team members aren't, the consultants are no longer beholden to the architectural team to access their own data. So they can host their own data on their account and push it to an architectural team. Architectural team can bring that information in. The only piece that's missing is that Revit linking. So But it's a fairly new product, so we'll have to see where Autodesk goes with it. So yeah, that's my tip. I know maybe I ran a little over time, but I hope that was exciting for y'all, because I think it has the potential to completely change how we work on the cloud.
I agree. And excuse me, I've definitely pondered why that folder has been called plans. Even when I explain, how you collaborate your file up there and getting stuff down and where stuff lives.
You went mute.
And apparently spacebar mutes. That's really great to know. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan. And make sure you guys, if you have any questions, keep throwing them in the chat, either here in Zoom or notice down in the mural, there are a questions for Dan area, and he will either answer out loud or right there in the mural. Mural is also a really great way for us to track information in the future. Just a little side note, not as easy with the Zoom chat. And thank you so much, Dan. Dan, I didn't give as much as an introduction, but he's an advisor for the board and an amazing human. He's going to chat with me later about BIM and hopefully BIMxt, that is, and hopefully create some dialogue for you guys to engage with on Mural. So jumping right over to John. And once again, one of my very, very favorite topics in the world. I've pretty much gotten it to the point in my career where I'm in Dynamo all day. And I'm so excited about it. So if, John, you wouldn't mind, maybe give a brief introduction about your past and how you've gotten here, just because it's super interesting, and jump right in.
Thanks for that introduction. Everyone can hear me, right? All that good stuff. Yeah, so I guess let me jump back a few slides just because you kind of asked for it too. But if you've ever seen me present before, I tend to share my Dynamo journey pretty often. In 2013, I opened Dynamo for the first time. I'm assuming everyone on the call knows what Dynamo is. If you don't, throw it in the chat and we'll break it down a bit more, which is fine. But I opened Dynamo for the first time in 2013, and it scared the heck out of me. So I closed it and I was like, I'm never going to learn how to use this. All the nodes turned yellow and red, and I was totally just like gutted. I was like, I'm never going to figure this out. In 2014, I attended Autodesk University, Marcello Scambelluri's lab, Dynamo for Dummies, and it finally made sense. From there, I started making nodes and all that kind of good stuff, and yeah, I built Rhythm, which is a Dynamo package, which is freely available and open source. Started learning Python, started learning C#. Rhythm became a C# package, built Monocle, and now I work at Parallax team where I primarily build add-ins these days for clients. We build Dynamo graphs too, but as you may or may not know, Dynamo graphs are a little bit hard to manage sometimes, so plugins are a little easier in that sense if you know how to build them. Lauren on our team actually demonstrated a plugin of ours last month, Foreground, which is really wild to me because I didn't build that. So like 4 years ago when I started at Parallax, I was building the plugins, and now we have someone else who's building things that I don't even know what all it's doing. So it's pretty wild and awesome at the same time. So that's a little bit of the history, my history. So the point there is if you're ever opening Dynamo and it intimidates you, stick with it. Don't worry, because I was right there with you. I didn't wake up one day and know all this stuff. I kind of learned it over time. This is my AU slide presentation, so ignore the AU stuff. I am presenting at AU in September. Dynamo updates and how to make your graphs suck less, generally speaking. So yeah, be sure to try to stop by if you're attending AU this year. They are going to be recorded and available online, so we can post a link to that after this recording as well at the end of September. Nodes look like this now in Dynamo. Pretty exciting or not, I don't know. We'll go over that in a second. And I want to share a few things about Dynamo. So Dynamo versioning is confusing as heck. I'm going to show Revit 2023 today, but with how Dynamo versioning works, we should be able to manage Dynamo graphs from Revit 2023 all the way back to Revit 2020 at this time. And that's because of a process called Semantic Versioning. That first number, that number 2, that's like that teal color, that greenish teal, that's a major version. So any graph that starts with that should be compatible with one another. I'm using the word should a lot here because there are a lot of considerations. But generally speaking, my guidance if someone's in Revit 2023 is to work in that version and migrate backwards and test now. Throw it on the mural if you're using Revit 2023 already, I guess, and it'd be interesting to see who all's encountered this dark mode. So yeah, what we can go over is we'll probably just get right into features. I could dwell on what's broken a lot if you'd like, but I can share these slides after as well. But basically, drop downs are broken as heck in Dynamo, and they continue to be broken, and there's a lot of different ways that they're broken, like this right here. So typing in ceilings category by name results in analytical surface ceilings in Revit 2023, the initial release. Freaking nightmare. Luckily, Monocle has a node that fixes this, and it converts it to the ID, which remains stable for Dynamo versions.
And so many other things. Monocle is amazing.
I'm going to show Monocle a bunch today too. So yeah, we'll close PowerPoint. It's kind of not as exciting. And here we are in Revit 2023, and this is a model that I just whipped up for this call. So don't mind this model. And under the Manage tab, we have Dynamo. That hasn't changed. It's been on the Manage tab since 2018. If anyone can tell me which tab it was on before 2018, put it in the chat or something. But it's on the Manage tab these days. So when we open Dynamo, it looks pretty similar to how it's looked. The library's changed quite a bit. So we have kind of this teal color of everything available to us, which is interesting. The library has no icons anymore. So me and my fellow package authors, we all added icons to our packages to give it branding, and everyone had it and they took it away from us. So yeah, I am a little upset about that, but they're gone. So yeah, that's a little bit new. For your Dynamo version, you are able to go to a new Dynamo menu and go to all these different settings. About is actually located in that menu now instead of help. I actually find myself going to help more often than not, and it's pretty frustrating. So yeah, it's on the Dynamo menu now. We have preferences in here. By default now in Revit 2023, Dynamo is in manual run mode. That's on the bottom left-hand corner of our screen. I like automatic run mode. They actually switched to automatic like in Revit 2018, but now they switched it back. So you can actually change that as well if you'd like. For this little highlight thing that I'm doing, that's through a tool called Windows Power Toys, and you hit Control twice on your keyboard for it because
Yeah, off the top, I can't think of it. Do they still have the open in manual mode when you open Dynamo Graph itself as well?
definitely. So yeah, anytime you
Awesome.
open a graph, you are able to go ahead and click on that manual
So
run mode.
important, you guys.
Yeah.
So important.
Especially upgrading graphs to Revit 2023. So always keep that in mind. So yeah, like I said, I tend to use it in automatic. One thing that's kind of interesting is upgrading files right now is, I should have probably done file open because it's going to be an automatic. So perfect example of what Dana just said. Yeah, that ran. When you open files that are being upgraded from a previous version though, with those light gray nodes, it's going to look like this, which is amazing, right? Super exciting. And that's because all of this stuff, all these nodes changed size and went like dark mode on us. So that's a big change. There are a lot of new features. So groups now have a header and a description. So you can go into more detail here and all that kind of stuff, which is really nice. Groups are collapsible, which is also nice. That's another new feature. I suggest using that one sparingly because if you collapse everything, it gets confusing really fast. And Workspace References is way better now in this version. So Workspace References has existed for a while, but what it does is it helps you resolve packages on the fly when you open a Dynamo graph. So now if you have a newer version of, let's say, data shapes, you can keep your newer version or install the one that the graph was built to use. So that's a really cool feature, especially during upgrading. Another thing to keep in mind is we have this Iron Python dependency now. In Revit 2023, the Python engine for Python nodes is CPython 3. So every package that uses Python is pretty much on Iron Python 2.7. So now you have to install that as a package, as a dependency. And there's blog posts on that on the Dynamo blog for this release. Basically, Iron Python hasn't been updated in a long time, which means that it's not getting security fixes, and the Dynamo team didn't like that, so they migrated to another engine. But they're nice, and they didn't take it away from us completely. We still have the option to install it, but it's like at a do at your own risk situation, right? So yeah, I'm just going to close Workspace References. But for fixing our graphs and the overlapping, we have a few options that you may or may not know about. In Dynamo, if you select a group or nodes and hit Control L on your keyboard, it does a bit of a cleanup. But as we can see, that's not perfect. It's not exactly what I would have liked it to do.
What is a cleanup doing?
It's
I've never have done
actually
that. I have my
the
own OCD. Try and clean up for me
yeah.
isn't gonna help.
So there's a
Makes it
blog
worse.
post from Lily from the Dynamo team, from the generative design team. It's actually an algorithm that's doing like pathfinding as well. So it's actually tracing the wires and going around them. So it's not just a spacing, it's doing some solving as well. So if you were to have like another graph open that's doing something else and they overlap, for instance, and you hit Control L, it actually does like nudging in that way based on pathfinding, kind of, which is pretty interesting. But it's not perfect when you already have a graph that you built and you lovingly aligned everything right. You were super specific, like Dana just said she is, about aligning all the nodes. So yeah, that doesn't work so well. So there is a batch method to fix this provided by Jacob Small from Autodesk. It's on the forum, so we'll link to that as well. Dana has those files. She showed those at her Great Built class in June as well.
Which sadly wasn't recorded.
Which sadly wasn't recorded. You had to be there, man.
You had to be
But
there and get COVID.
yeah. Yeah, throw me off here. But yeah, so the downside with those batch scripts is if you do run them, they don't work with things like me, rhythm. I retitle my nodes as you place them with a prefix. That way you know where the heck it came from.
Which is awesome.
So it doesn't work with those. That's the downside. But if you get Monocle, which is a view extension for Dynamo, not only do you get access to a bunch of other tools, you now get access to this resizer or Dynamo graph. And I named things weird on purpose because we gotta set the
Love
bar
it.
low. That way, if it doesn't work so well, you're like, well, it's named like crap. Oh well, you know. So, just kidding.
And I
But
think you call it the package manage doggy or the
yeah, so this guy
right. I see, and I call it the Doge.
is the Doge. Yeah.
It's
So
the Doge. Okay.
fun tip about this one is this was the first add-in I built for Dynamo in this way. That's called a view extension. Russell from the Dynamo team's like, you should get into view extensions. They're so crazy to create in this. So I made it like really stupid looking on purpose because it was doing something they told me couldn't be done back 4 years ago, which was find which packages a graph uses. So Monocle had it first, and I believe that the Workspace References was spun off kind of with inspiration from Monocle, which I think is kind of cool. I don't ever really get upset about it. I think it's really neat. This actual UI will change depending on the season of the year as well. So that's kind of a complete tangent, but it will change. So open in October and December and kind of tag me on Twitter as to what it looks like. But the resizer, it actually changes your run mode to manual if you're in automatic already, because I don't want it to run continuously while you're making changes. And what we'll do
And
is
let
we'll
us
go
know if you
ahead.
guys have had this problem where you open up your scripts in 2.13 for Revit 2023, right? You open up a Dynamo script in Revit 2023 and it is all jumbled, right? It's illegible. Now you got, if you're like me and you have incredibly bad OCD when it comes to things like this, now you have to reorganize the whole thing.
What's kind of crazy about that is it's even a little more than OCD. A new feature in Dynamo 2.13 is you can drag nodes into groups. So if your groups are resizing when you upgrade a graph and you click on a node, it adds it to that group.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it.
That sucks. So like running in manual and resizing them is really useful. So I
I
just
love it
toggled this to,
sometimes
oh, go
and
ahead.
hate it sometimes.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Um, I put this on 1, so we'll just change this to auto run, and as we slide this, we'll start to see what it does. So as we slide this, it's actually fixing our graph for us really quickly. I tend to like 2.25 and 1.5. Those are the same values that Jacob used on his graphs. So those work really well. He must have done some research to figure out how those work. So yeah, that looks really nice. These notes kind of suck, so we can fix that as well. Um, in Monocle, if you hit Control Shift P on your keyboard, you get the boring mode of the package usage. And what we can do is I'll actually change this prefix to what it used to be, which is custom package, and clear those notes. And then I'll change it back to what I like, which is custom node, and I'll re-annotate them. Really quickly, I've annotated which package version these nodes come from now. It also pins the note to the node, which is a new feature in 2.13. That feature does a lot more than just pin notes. It actually shows you descriptions in Dynamo Player. So I encourage you to check out Dana's videos on her YouTube about those features. They're really nice. Cool. That's kind of a lot of those features that are added to this. Another one that Dana also showed on her YouTube is the graph properties. These came out in 2.12, which is in Revit 2022. And on the surface, they didn't seem like they did anything very exciting. But in Dynamo, in Revit 2023, they came to life to where they actually give us a icon. They give us a description. And I noticed a misspelling on this while recording my AU session, so that's awesome. It's fixed now for this data set if you'd like it. But yeah, they give us an icon, those pinned notes.
Well, it really didn't do anything in
Didn't do anything
2.12,
at all. So
right?
everyone's
It was
like,
just there. And you're
I'm
like,
not
what?
using that feature.
Yeah, what is this here for?
Yeah, they were being sneaky on us because in
Mhm.
2023 they actually did something. So yeah, those pinned notes, they actually result in this description right here. So now you can really tell people what's going on with their graphs. You can include a URL as well that takes you to like a intranet or something to help you learn how to use the Dynamo graph. And yeah, really cool stuff. This specific graph right here will actually color code Keynotes by their source. So I can give this to people as well. I think I have to toggle it and run it. And the red ones are user keynotes. So that's what this graph does actually. It's one of my first graphs that I built way back when. So I updated it for this presentation. Just a bit of nostalgia way back when Dynamo nodes were yellow by default, if anyone remembers that. Yeah, so all these descriptions, author, URL, use them in the new version of Dynamo. They're really, really useful. Further expanding on that, if you use those features and you go get Relay, which is open source on GitHub, this actually fires off Dynamo graphs from the ribbon. And we use those descriptions and those URLs to fill out the F1 help and the description of the button on the ribbon. So these are actual Dynamo graphs that just fire off in the background from the ribbon. So that's a rhythm node that gives you a UI. And let me close Dynamo because running Dynamo.
So Relay is a rhythm extension.
Relay is an actual full plugin that's just open source on GitHub. It's not the only thing it has to do
from
with
the
Dynamo.
Parallax team.
Yes, yeah. So the only thing it has to do with Dynamo is it takes a
Putting the
folder
link in our
structure.
mural.
It takes a folder structure and it takes Dynamo graphs in that folder structure and puts them as buttons for you. It is open source, so it's not like a fully supported tool. I have to say that because we open sourced it because we were working on other projects which use some of these bits of logic, and I figured why not share it with the broader community as well. So yeah, there's like a lot of little sample graphs in here too. So I think this one is giving me trouble the other way, but we'll run it anyway. It uses data shapes to create a UI. So Relay creates no UI. You have to create it in data shapes. And this uses data shapes to chart your wall type usage and all that good stuff. The push on drafting view was acting weird the other day though. So that's a data shapes thing, I think with IronPython. But yeah, really cool if you build UIs with data shapes. I guess I'll kind of finish it out here as well. So groups, once again, you create groups, title, description, pretty cool. Let's go ahead and add another node just to do this. You can drag and drop into the groups. And at the beginning, I said how I started out using Dynamo and I was really afraid of it. I just want to show this contribution because I'm kind of proud of it. My first contribution to Dynamo source code was this last year, and it was to hold down Alt to remove a node from a group. So they added the ability to drag into a group. They didn't give you an ability to remove. So now if you hold Alt, you can do that. So I added that to the source code. So that was pretty wild to me. that first of all, they accepted it and my code wasn't crap, and that it's in there now. So pretty excited about that one. So yeah, I encourage you to try out all the new features. There's a lot of cool new things in there. Install the Iron Python stuff if you're using older versions of packages. Use the graph preferences. If you want to run in manual run mode, go for it. It just depends on what you're doing. If you're creating sheets or something, run in manual run mode. Do not run in automatic. Trust me. But yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I had. If there's any questions, I can pop into them real quick. I covered that. Cool.
Were there any changes to lacing or binding in 23?
So laces or binding are the same. So it's just auto shortest and longest.
And
For
cross
most
product, right?
scenario and cross product, for most scenarios, auto is going to work for you pretty well. If you start encountering issues, you can then mess with it more. And for those who might not know what that means, what we can do, we'll open that one maybe. Yeah, so lacing's in the bottom corner of the node, and there's a great graphic on the Dynamo primer about this. But basically, if you have a list of one item, and then you have a list of 4 items, shortest goes 1 to 1, longest goes like this, and then cross product goes all over the place. Yeah, real quick with the finger demonstration. But yeah, nothing
I
changed
feel
there.
like auto or longest is usually the two that I mess with the most.
Yeah, I find myself using shortest if I'm controlling the lists. So like a lot of times I'm like creating one-to-one matches because I want to be in control of the data. In regards to binding, nothing changed for that in 2023. You still have stuff update. So if you create an element in Dynamo and change a parameter, it will move. So use Dynamo Player because that doesn't have binding if you don't want binding. Jacob also has a great post about that on the forum that we can link to.
And I will link to
The
the
ArchiLab question's
primer.
pretty interesting. So let me just search it just to show it real quick. And I'm probably out of time.
Nope, you have all the time you want.
So if you use ArchiLab, which is one of the must-have packages, honestly.
Absolutely.
Is it a dash in the darn thing? Their search still sucks in 2023. So yeah.
Yes. It's archi-lab.net.
Consistency matters.
Yeah, so for his package, you don't just click install if you're in a Revit version. Managing plugins for Revit versions is really easy because each plugin lives on its own. Dynamo packages, we have no way to ship several different versions. So Conrad decided to do this a different way, which some might not agree with, but it works if you know the logic. Basically, these last 2 numbers right here are which version of Revit you should install that on. So all these 23s are the ones you should install. This 22 would be what you install in Revit 22, and this 21 is what you'd install in Revit 21. He made that decision because API changes in Revit means he either needs to target the highest version and leave all the older versions out, or vice versa. With this, he's able to manage compatibility for every Revit version. But it is a different package version for each Revit version, which makes it hard if you're pulling from a deployment that's like on a network for all 2.0 versions. So that's kind of like the downside to that. That's why we always recommend to sync packages locally. So always, always, always. And another tip is if you hit %app data, % in your bar, it'll take you to your app data folder. Always pull your packages local to app data. Don't do the mapping to a network. First of all, do it if you hate your laptop users, I guess. But it just doesn't work very well. There's actually a link in Autodesk's or Dynamo Team's release notes that says, if your network drive's bigger than 100 gigabytes, your Dynamo will slow down. And if you're someone in charge of getting adoption of Dynamo at your firm, making it slow down even more is not like a great thing to do to your users. And then once again, if you have a laptop and you're mapped to the network, you go to some meeting or a lunch and learn or something, and you're like, check out this Dynamo graph. And then everything turns yellow and people are like, show me when it works. And you're like, it worked 5 minutes ago. So like, yeah, just don't map to a network path. Yeah.
So John, just a quick question as far as administration goes. So then the best practice then would be to distribute from a central location to the local machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we actually do it at Parallax through our deployment tools, which are called pragmatic praxis. And every time someone logs into their machine, it will sync packages from the network. And all of us in Parallax have a network location that we're mapped to. I'm opening it on the other screen because Aaron will kill me if I just show the entire network. I'd like to keep my job today if I could. But yeah, so we have a 2.x network location, and all of these sync when you log on to your machine each morning. So it'll actually give you the packages, and I manage this for us. So I update packages on here. Aaron logs in tomorrow, or Lauren or Melissa, and they get these packages right away. For me, I'm preparing for an AU presentation, so I had to turn that off because I kept overriding packages for my demonstration. So that was fun. So it's something to keep in mind as well. For things like lunchbox,
That's what the other laptop is for.
yeah. For things like lunchbox, it's really nice to manage them that way because it's no longer on the package manager. So you would have to manage it kind of.
Well,
like
and I
that.
will say one thing I ran into is I love Archilab, love Conrad. Many of his nodes are still working, but anything that includes Python, unfortunately, he hasn't upgraded it to Python 3, so those will not work in 2.13. There's plenty of nodes that still will work that do not incorporate Python, but any of his nodes that incorporate Python, unfortunately, may not or probably will not work.
And I think that's pretty common for most packages. So like Clockwork is Iron Python as
Unless
well.
you're John Pierson and Rhythm.
Rhythm's all C#, and I did that when they changed to 2.0 because the file format changed for DYF files. So I didn't see all this coming, right? But I did that because I was like, well, how do I manage this for all these versions of Revit? So Rhythm, you just install the latest one and it works all the way back to Revit 2020. Some nodes might not work. Like if you go try to modify view titles in 2018, like that's not going to work because those APIs didn't exist till 2022. But for the most part, it works pretty well. The one thing is you will get notifications sometimes that say this version targets Revit 2022 and you're in Revit 2020. Dynamo shows you every warning. They like to point out everyone else's warnings, but not their own. So that's fun. So that's ignorable when it says something about a Revit dependency normally. Yeah, I think I probably went way over time. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
this was great. I mean, as we all know, Dynamo is my favorite topic, so could talk about it all day. Thank you so much, John, and I really do appreciate it. Of course, if you guys continue to come up with questions regarding 2.13, please continue to post them over in the chat or preferably on Mural once again, because it's loggable. We can track it later and potentially even come up with new presentations in the future, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So I can see a lot of you guys have already started to vote up. I don't see any down votes, which is interesting. But you can see here, got plenty of down votes and up votes. So you can essentially come over here and place those icons next to the topics that you would like to see in the future. You'll also see that I added one for Autodesk rep to discuss Bridge, because I think that's super interesting and I feel like that's going to go places. So definitely, please start to at least vote what you'd like to see in the future. If there's anything that you feel like we've talked way too much about, please feel free to downvote it. You'll also see that there's an other location. You can just copy over the boxes like we did for our location, right? That are discipline aligned. But as long as you come in here and you place something, that's absolutely fine. You can also see that if you double click, you can also start to place text. Starts to get a bit big, but you can see here that there are some manipulation tools. We just want you to share. That's the biggest thing here. Probably the easiest thing would be to grab the box over here, already a text box. Once again, discipline aligned. So if we look over here on the left, you can see we have architecture, BIM, civil construction, et cetera, all the way to other, right? So you can grab the icon that corresponds to your discipline and let us know if there's any other topics that you would like to see. A few other things that we'd like to talk to you guys about BIMxt in terms of where it's going. It's a virtual circumstance, right? Unfortunately, we can't have you guys all unmute yourselves and speak to us. We would be able to hear anything. So we've really kind of relied on Mural for that. Dan, how are you feeling with Mural? You feel like Mural's working over the last few months? I mean, we haven't been using it since the beginning.
Okay, so
Let's hear it.
honest feedback, right? I am more of a analytically minded person.
Do you guys use it at McMillan?
Yeah, we do. The design teams love Mural. They love the collaboration side of it.
Smith Group.
It can be a little anxiety inducing for me sometimes, like
Me too.
especially when the meeting gets hopping and like people are throwing things all over the board. But it does facilitate some great collaboration. So I've learned to adjust.
Yeah, the fact that you can't really snap things together drives me absolutely crazy because of my OCD. But other than that, I think it's a pretty great tool. And they actually do have some really great templates. So let us know down here. You can share your thoughts on Mural is the very first one.
I gotta say too, so like when I first hopped on this, the Mural thing came up. Using it in this way is awesome. This is collaborative. I've been to a lot of presentations where they do the polling things, which are some of the other tools, and you have to wait for it.
We've never used that.
So that's the feature that like I'm like, if I'm in a presentation, like answer the poll, please. We'll give you 5 minutes. Like that always feels rough. But for this documenting, like I'm able to go in and answer questions right now after hogging all that time I did. So I think that's really nice.
Absolutely. And you can see down here, he's doing exactly that, right? Dan, John, others are able to come in here and add comments to text boxes. So pretty wonderful thing if you didn't understand what he was referring to there. Very cool. I think we have some visualization, which I guess Lumion Enscape would probably fall under, which is, yeah, that's awesome. I get it. Cool. Nice little checkbox there. Another thing that we've been doing pretty much since the beginning, I guess, along the same line time frames and Mural is we've been having 2 presenters that have similar topics. So kind of a themed presentation, if you will. And I feel as though that brings in a higher crowd in terms of you get a mixed review of one topic, right? I mean, you're not going to get kind of a one side opinion or a one glance from one scope, right? Of what that tool or approach or workflow might be. But it sometimes can also limit us. Maybe it's, for example, last time was landscape architecture, which we actually had really great participation and enrollment with, which was really fantastic. But that could limit it, right? If somebody's not necessarily interested in it.
So I don't know about you, Dana, but I have really enjoyed the whole BIMxt adventure that we've been on. And as we've been building these out, I've actually been bookmarking to specific timestamps on the YouTube videos. And I've started using them as like education support material within my firm because we've covered such a broad range of topics. So I don't know if you guys use it for that, but I do that all the time. So some of those views might be troubleshooting or support tickets that come from McMillan.
That is really fantastic to hear, and a wonderful reminder for me to tell you guys over here on the very far right. I kind of tediously and ridiculously long time took the agenda from the past 2 years and put them all here so you can see what we've been talking about. So you could also vote up or down. Maybe you hated one of the presentations that we gave. Maybe we should give it over. I don't know. We want honest feedback here. So another really great thing here is that the YouTube videos that Dan was referring to are linked. So maybe you want to see January's meeting on sustainability. You can actually open up that link and go to the YouTube channel provided by CAD Micro as always. Now you don't want to double click on it. I was doing that too. You actually want to come down here and click on the open link icon. A little tricky once again, those little mural oddities. right? But if you click in there, you can get to the open link and view some of those. So maybe you want to bookmark, as Dan has done. Some of the Revit tips and tricks are really great ones. We had John in here previously talking about Monocle, I believe, right? I think we did. So many presentations, John. I know it's hard to keep up.
Well, I just always talk about Monocle, so I forget when I've talked about it.
It's like specifically, yeah. Or maybe it was actually when we had the Revit and Dynamo tips. I think you actually gave us some Dynamo tips then. That might have been it.
Cool.
2 years of meetings. It's hard to remember all of them. So you can also upvote meetings over here. That would be great. Once again, by dragging the either voting down or voting up buttons over to the previous meetings. And once again, of course, we will update those as we go. You can see the what's new in Dynamo once we have this guy cropped down to John's presentation, and Dan, of course, Dan, his tip.
My highly artistic tip.
The live demo tip, that was impressive.
I was sweating bullets the whole time. Having flashbacks from my reseller days.
Oh goodness, I bet. You can also see that we have a final column over here for other feedback. So if you guys think that we should add anything to BIMxt, maybe we should remove something, change something. We'd love to get your feedback there. One last thing that I will share here is, oh, and you can see a lot of my little copies from when I was doing the tedious meeting things up here. Goodness, I made a mess. But we have changed our date. We are no longer meeting on the third Thursday of the month. We are now going to meet on the second Thursday of the month. And you're like, why? Why would you do that? Well, mostly because Autodesk has their community conversations the third Thursday of the month. We were competing with them, not intentionally. We did not realize when we set this up that they were on the same time, same day. Exactly. So,
whoops.
Yeah, big problem on our behalf. So I want to participate in those. Hopefully you guys want to participate in those as well as BIMxt. So we have changed that. In addition, it makes it a little easier around holiday time, right? November, December, the third Thursday in particular, gets a little dicey. So please, once again, feel free to come in here, give us your thoughts, give us your comments, continue to add questions for John and Dan. We very much appreciate you guys as the participants of BIMxt network group. We really are here for you to collaborate and provide information. Dan, do you have any other feedback, comments, changes we might be able to look forward to in the future?
Other than I'm really excited about next year. You know, we've been looking back at the last 2 years, and it's really surprising how many we've put together, because they just keep coming, right? And it's like every month it's a new one. And then you look back, you're like, wow, I have this whole library of content I've helped create. But yeah, I'm excited. And honestly, like Dana was saying, your feedback helps us figure out what to present on. So we're not just like sitting around a cauldron like a bunch of witches trying to dream up the next presentation topic. We need your input. So let us know. And don't be afraid. Like, I'm a big boy. If you think my presentation wasn't great, you can tell me. It helps me improve. So I can take it. But going through the list of presentations from last year, it's like going down memory lane, because like some of those were really fun presentations.
Absolutely.
Like the one we had Danya on was really fun.
Yes, very much fun. They were tag teaming the Revit tips, right? And in addition to that, you can see that we have the BIMxt Network August 22 survey up in the very top left, just like everything else. This is a link. So if you double click on there, you can actually get to the survey. It's also, I will make sure that this is posted in the chat for those of you guys who are not in the mural for whatever reason. Maybe you're on your phone, right? You're working busy. You can't open up mural for whatever reason. is blocked by your administrator, which would be dreadful. Please let us know if that's the case. And of course, any other information that you have to share. We would really, really appreciate it. And of course, we will take all of this information. It looks like we definitely love the how-tos, the project startups, and of course, my favorite, the Dynamo and Revit documentation. Those are getting quite a few votes here. We definitely appreciate you guys specifying any other topics, because that's a lot of topics there. So you guys, thank you so much. And don't forget to look at previous meetings, bookmark the YouTube channel, the CAD Micro BIMxt YouTube channel, as well as join our LinkedIn group. All of the information that we provide from this presentation, including the YouTube link that we will post later, will be posted up on the BIMxt Network LinkedIn group, which once again, that image is a link. You can get up there, see all of our posts, all of the videos, if you can't get to the mural later. You can't get to all of those wonderful links that I went through so tediously to place.
It is nice to have them all aggregated in one place.
Absolutely. And just to kind of see like what the vast amount of topics we've had. And actually, John has a wonderful list of, he has actually a PowerPoint slide of the packages that he recommends. We'll make sure that we post that up on our LinkedIn page. Make sure, John, you've added the Genius Loki to that. Remember, that wasn't up there on built. So you're going to need that for your AU presentation. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Really appreciate you, as always, for joining BIMxt today. And you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.